Good evening, Boneheads, and welcome to Rollin' Bones with Ryan Howard, your RPG treasure trove. I am your host and King of the Boneheads, Ryan Howard, and welcome to Valor Studios. We are a content creation community focused on the tabletop role-playing game world, and we love sharing our stories with all of you out there. As I said, I am Ryan Howard, and this is Rollin' Bones. For anyone just joining us for the first time this evening, this is a TTRPG talk show where we bring on guests from the role-playing community and have conversations about what they are bringing to their tables and to your tables. So if you guys like what you're seeing tonight, definitely subscribe here on Twitch. Click the subscribe button just down here below my face. If you want more information on what we've got going on, there's a few different places for you to look. First and foremost, there's valorstudios.com, which you'll see a link for here in the chat. There's also the Discord community where you can connect with myself and other Valor Studios personalities and behind-the-scenes string pullers. If you like that kind of thing, link is there in the chat as well. And you can also find all of our content on the Valor Studios YouTube page. So if you guys like what you see tonight and you want to share it with someone who wasn't able to join us live, definitely take that link over there that's going to pop up in the chat and give it to your friends. Tell them that, Rollin' Bones is available on YouTube. Also, if you're watching us on YouTube or listening to the audio afterwards, thank you for supporting us in that way. Definitely subscribe on YouTube, give the video a like, share it around, all that good stuff just to help us out here and help us grow the Valor Studios family. So with that said, I'd like to introduce tonight's guests. We've got a couple of great guys on here. If you are familiar with any of the independent publishers union crowd that I've had on, so Levi Combs, Jeff Talanian, Skeeter Green, these guys are often at conventions with them. They have a great publishing company called Silver Bulette, and they are a couple of really awesome guys that I've been looking forward to having on for quite some time. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the Silver Bullets. We have Ian McGarty and Rocky Gardner joining us tonight. So, fellas, welcome to Rollin' Bones.
Thanks for having us on.
Oh, no problem at all. Glad you guys could come on tonight.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, so we actually have a Kickstarter, which is why we kind of told you we were holding off. I know you'd mentioned this.
Yep.
Us coming on, but now is the time. It's ripe for us with our Kickstarter coming on.
Oh,
which is it's a zine, first issue of a zine for fantasy games. I would say there's a lot of good adventures in there.
Yep, absolutely. Fantastic Geographic, issue number 1. And that is that Kickstarter's currently live, isn't it?
Yes, so we timed it to run. We timed it kind of long, but it was like a late night conversation that Rocky pitched, and then I did it in the morning before he woke up. So, oops.
So here we are.
So it's running from Total Con to Gary Con is kind of what it was. So,
awesome.
And we made an appearance. Both of us were at Total Con, and Rocky will be at Gary Con.
Yep.
Sweet.
And he will be repping the Independent Publishers Union booth there.
Nice. Cool. So I want to start things off tonight the way that we usually start things off here on Rollin' Bones. I got these questions everyone gets asked when they come on the show. So let's begin kind of at the beginning here. Ian and Rocky, how did you guys get into RPGs and gaming?
Sure, I'll go first. I started during the Satanic Panic. The long and the short is I was told I wasn't allowed to play, so guess what I was going to do come hell or high water, right? Like I was 9, was told you can't play that game, it's Satan worship, and I've been playing since 1984.
Sweet.
Yeah, for me, I was 9, and an older cousin gave me a milk crate full of first edition D&D and basic stuff. And we're like, we're going to college. You can have this, and it's no looking back from there. So, and I had already been digging into some of the reading, like Jules Verne and stuff I loved, and was just getting into like Edgar Rice Burroughs and stuff. So it was right up my alley when I discovered that stuff.
Nice. Now, of all the game systems that you guys have played in your time as players, what would you say is your favorite system?
I don't know that I have a favorite system. I play fantasy, so as long as it's fantasy bent, I'm happy. Probably Mentor D&D is what I cut my teeth on. So it's the one that, if I'm going to fall back to it, it's going to be that. I play a lot of OSR stuff. I play a little bit of 5th edition, DCC. I don't really have a favorite. I'm glad to have the chance to sit down and game every chance I do.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with Rocky. Like, if you got a game, I'll play it. I was kind of saying that to you as we were rolling up to this too, that the Zine is really fun for me because I do like trying out different game systems, seeing what's really great about them, what's not so great, and kind of playing with it. So I like being able to write for different systems and look at a lot of different settings. So I mean, I'll play anything more. I played some Morkborg at TotalCon with Tom Wilson, which was such a blast.
That was a great game. A lot of fun.
Such a blast. Yeah, I had a wonderful time, and like I'll play that. We'll play, but I a little more than Rocky have a sci-fi bent. I'd say that I like. I like a healthy dose of sci-fi in my fantasy. So. You'll likely see some of that, especially coming up. We already think about that a lot. What's going on?
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Cool. So one thing that I've noticed that everyone kind of develops as they, go throughout their gaming career, we all kind of gravitate towards certain styles of play and styles of running our games. So if you guys had to describe your play styles both as game masters and as players, how would you do that?
As a game master, I like description. I like description from my players. When they're searching for a trap, I want to hear them say, "I'm tapping the ceiling and the floor with my 10-foot pole." I want to know the actions they're taking. I'm searching for traps. I think that being able to describe the scene, both as a player and as a DM, creates a lot more immersion than just rolling some dice and having some fun that way. And there's nothing wrong with the rolling the dice method, but I find it a lot more fun to use the vocabulary and the ambiance of words to really paint a picture.
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of that. I think Rocky's played in some old school D&D with me, and I want to say that if I'm rolling dice, I've already failed. That I haven't been able to talk my way out of or through whatever problem there is, just by using like common sense and cunning. So nowadays, I'd say I'm more rules light system, but some of that is just that I'm older and I don't have like the time I did when I was 16 to 25 to just like crunch out characters and like game out numbers, and so I've just gravitated to like fast, quick, easy, and as fun as we can. But DM wise, yeah, I like to have fun with description too. I oftentimes will describe obvious things in a way that makes them seem confusing, so that you'll suddenly discover the picture. Like, you see me do that a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
I think both of us do, is like you said, senses. We think about like what you're smelling, what you might like, what the air feels like, what the environment is like, as often as possible.
Is it dry? Is it moist? All of these things come into play when a player is making a decision for their character. And the more description you have, the better the better their ability to make that decision.
I think like I guess I'm the kind of game master too that will like I'll repeat myself if you need me to. Like I'm not. I don't think it's like one and done unless you get really annoying and then a trap will
Yeah,
just run in there or
we're there to
something.
have
But
fun, right? So I don't mind repeating myself at all, but at the same time, don't make me do it 16 times because you're playing on your phone. If you're trying to get a better feeling of it, great. But if you're not paying attention, then you're going to miss out on the description.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's usually pretty easy to tell the difference between the two. It's pretty obvious when someone is just trying to they're just turning something over in their head and trying to really kind of piece out, okay, what can I do here, versus someone who just looked up and was like, oh wait, whoa,
It's
what
my
happened?
turn. What? My oldest son is really bad about that. He'll be off in La La Land playing around, then all of a sudden it's his turn in the game, and he has no idea what's going on.
But he'll just make an impulsive move.
Oh, he will too. It's great.
Look, I don't really know what's going on. All right, I'll hit something. You're like, oh. Oh, just
He's 11, so he's still, still learning all that stuff.
Now, and this next question is one that people sometimes struggle with, but those of us who devote a lot of time to this game, to making this content, we have a lot of good memories wrapped up in RPGs. So if you guys had to pick like a fondest RPG memory, what would that be?
I was thinking about this earlier tonight. I was listening to your Harley Stroh interview, and he was talking about Gen Con. And 2007 Gen Con, I think it was a magical moment in my gaming history. I got to meet both Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson at that convention. I think it was their last convention. I think it was 2007. I discovered True Dungeon. So, like, that whole weekend, that was the first weekend I met. Ian was that year as well. So, like, 2007 Gen Con, there were just so many things that happened that are mythical almost, right? Like, I gained one of my best friends on the planet. I met the two creators of my favorite hobby. Like, these are things that I'll never be able to reproduce again. So Gen Con 2007 really sticks out for me.
yeah, that's I guess that was a good, pretty good year.
It was a good one, right?
Looking back on that, we've Rocky and I have done a lot of gaming together, good and bad, I think. But I think I don't know.
Hey, you want me to give another one for you? Because
no, I think one of my favorite gaming memories was with Rocky. He's gonna hate me for saying this. Was we were playing in a Pathfinder campaign that totally imploded due to like personal fights and stuff. And I don't know why. I had such a great time in that game.
That game was a lot of fun. That was Castle of Mad Archmage, right? That one?
Yeah. And I had a character that was a cleric, but everybody thought was a bard. No one had any idea it was a cleric, except for that ridiculous centaur.
Yeah.
But, so I had that game.
Those were the days.
Despite, even as it was the game, I think because of that game was imploding, and Rocky and we all just kind of like rode it to the end. That it felt like we were going down the chute as the floor's collapsing. Sort of increased the tenor of the game and the emotional feel, I think.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around the everyone thought your cleric was a bard thing. Like, did you have like a musical instrument that you were constantly playing?
Yeah. I had a multi-class thief bard or a thief cleric that appeared to be a bard. So I was like a cleric of Ala Damara. So I blow every cent I had immediately in the tavern when we got there. They're like, drinks on the house. Like, yeah, it was, but people didn't realize I was a cleric because I would just do very bard-like things.
Gotcha. Okay, that's completely different from what I was thinking. I was thinking a cleric that everyone thinks is a bard would be like the cool youth pastor.
No, he looked like a swashbuckling rogue. They were struggling to figure out I think that was part of the beauty of that character is they couldn't pin
Yeah,
him down.
it was. And riding the centaur.
Because I would slowly reveal my
Thanks, Jake.
abilities. I never used anything until I needed to. So,
Gotcha.
but
So
that's some of my fondest memories there.
Gotcha. Now, we've got one more of these introductory questions. Rocky, if you listen to the Hardly Stro interview, you know what's coming up here. I'll tell you guys, the answer to this question can be as philosophical or as sophomoric as you want it to be. But if you could put anything on a t-shirt, what would it be?
I mean, I have to put just one thing on a t-shirt. I've made a lot of t-shirts over the years that have said a lot of ridiculous things, and
I have a lot of ridiculous T-shirts.
If you want to put like a million things on one t-shirt, then go for it. But
I don't know. One thing on a t-shirt, just a boulet. It's got to be. If I can
Yeah.
only have one thing, it's just got to be a boulet.
I would like a Bulette shirt. I also I have Terry Pavlett did a character sketch for me several years ago that I bought from him at Game Hole or something, and I'd like to have that character on a T-shirt too. He was speaking of Harley Stroh, Brendan LaSalle made a world called X-Crawl, and I had a character in that called Thrust, and he was just he was famous for running around and tearing off his armor to fight stuff. Like that was his whole thing. So having him on a T-shirt would be pretty great.
Yeah, we're hoping for some X-Crawl classics soon. We keep
Yeah.
hovering on the edges of that. That's been in the beta, and Brandon's we've played a little bit of that and taken a look. It looks like it's going to be pretty awesome.
It's going to be great.
Sweet.
That game is classic 1980s WWF meets dungeon crawling, televised like Smash TV.
Ooh.
So that's a lot. I just dumped a lot of
late
80s, early 90s references on you.
If you haven't played X-Crawl, find it. Yes, you do.
It's so picture it's like like sponsored magic items in the dungeon, and that game is it's wonderful. It's a beautiful creation. We've played many an hour of that and enjoyed them.
I'm picturing like Running Man the RPG.
Yeah, that is essentially it. Except you get to go in armed, and like some of the monsters are contracted, so like you can't hit the dragon in the face, right? Or you can't like they'll be like so there's it's because it's like a sport, like a televised sport. So that's a great game. Great game.
Man, that's amazing. I didn't even. I feel like maybe someone had told me about that, but no, that is amazing. I need to track that one down.
Yeah, that was LaSalle's first independent publish. I'm trying to remember the press, something Panda, but that's
I don't remember.
But you can find that it was for Pathfinder. D&D
yeah, he did a 3.5 and a Pathfinder version of it, and it shouldn't be too difficult to track down. And we know he's working on one for DCC now too.
That maybe I should wait that one out because DCC is very much where my head is at right now. So that sounds amazing. So with the introductory questions out of the way, I want to dig into some specific stuff. But as we're doing that, first things first, I need to give a huge thank you to Ian because you had a very long conversation with me at North Texas last year, where I went from I have this idea in my head of what would be what I think is a cool game setting, to you sitting down and saying, all right, here's the realities of what you need to do to like put this thing together and turn it into something. And so I do have to thank you for that because that journey could not have started without your help.
Yeah, I like to say to Rocky that like we are famous for not losing any money on any projects. which is actually kind of tough in the
Yeah, it
RPG
is.
publishing industry. So, but we manage, and we have every time, and everything, and our quality keeps getting better. With
And for those people out there listening, it's not magic. It's not one day I think of a bunch of words and then the next day I have a book, right? Like there are 100 steps from the initial process of this sounds like a good idea for an adventure to a published book. And if you're not familiar with them, there's a lot of work that goes on in there. A lot of work.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think, and I don't know. I'm not always sure what other publishers do, but I think like Rocky and I play test a lot. Like we run the adventures that we're giving you. They're not just like a brainchild that I slapped together and put out. Like someone's played it with one of us running it. And I think that sometimes shows and shakes off in the some of the dust of the adventure, some of the rust that would otherwise accumulate from just writing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were also the first person who ran an MCC game for me. The game that I played at North Texas, that was the first time I'd played either DCC or MCC. So that was the gateway drug for me.
That's what I'm trying to think of which adventure I was running. I believe that adventure that you were playing in will be like the full complex you were in will be in issue 2 of Fantastic Geographic. So if you got a taste for that one and were wondering what the rest of the story was, there's frozen ape men in the basement for sure.
Nice. And just to give the people at home a little taste of what happened, there was a machine that if you stick your arm in it and roll, you might get a mutation or you might just take damage. Depending on what you are.
Yeah, depending on some things, yeah. I enjoy like I've always liked Gamma World, and so I enjoy Mutant Ball Classics quite a bit. I'm itching to play some Mutant Year Zero. It's on my radar. But those games are a blast for me. So quite a blast.
And we have a first question from the chat here. And I'm going to add to it a little bit. So the question from chat is, do the playtests contribute to revisions of the content? And what I'm going to add is, how drastically can they affect what you guys are planning on doing with your adventures?
Oh, it depends on how terribly the adventure went, for sure. And like how well. We have some people who play with us regularly. We'll play tests, like our buddy Jake. When we get time, always breaks stuff out, and yeah, we want like a blow by blow of what he thought, because he's going to tell us where he either felt like it could get broken, or he could have made it not work, or made it way too easy or too hard. But yeah, we listen to feedback for sure, because it's important. I want you to be able to grab it and run it with as minimal change as possible. I don't think it's possible to run an adventure just scripted perfectly without some little changes, because that's just the way a dynamic group plays. But
and largely I think that they stick to the outline pretty well, but I know in a couple of adventures, like, this monster was overpowered, you can't put a dragon there, let's put something a little more tame, like a wyvern instead. That type of thing is more the type of stuff that happens with a playtest. The storyline generally stays about the same, just the challenge level of stuff changes some.
Yeah, usually it's one of us suggesting a ridiculously overpowered monster, and then the other one saying that's not going to work, and then we somehow cripple it enough to make both of us happy. So it's a give and take.
And I can tell you from experience, when you are playing in a playtest by, I don't know, Skeeter Green,
they're dangerous.
You get to a point where everyone's dead, and Skeeter's like, good, yep, that's good.
I think a lot of these games too, especially with those like MCC or Swords and Wizardry or an OSE game, like you can slap a new character together
Oh yeah.
so quickly that
Mhm.
it
Yep.
almost doesn't matter if your dude gets pulped or your lady gets pulped. You just like snatch up a new paper and you're back on the field, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, and that's one of the things that Harley talked a good bit about last week. And just to reiterate, for anyone out there who's not at all familiar with OSR games, one of the reasons why it's not that big a deal that your character can die like that is making a new character does not take any time at all. It's
Yep.
not
5 minutes.
like yeah, it's not like it is in God forbid Pathfinder or 3.5 or 4E. It's not even like it is in 5E. It's 5 minutes, like Rocky just said. It's real quick to get back in the action.
Yeah. I prefer the old school stuff too because I also don't I prefer to play like my own personal stats, like figuring out puzzles and stuff than a character's like depicted number stats.
Mhm.
I want to figure out the puzzle. I want to solve your dungeon. I want to solve the traps. Like that's how I play. And I think I don't know if it's adversarially, but it's like yeah, we want to win
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah, and I mean it's approaching the game as a game or a puzzle or a challenge rather than as some kind of I don't know, like story session where everyone's kind of sitting around telling a story. Not that again, if you like to play that way, that's fine, but definitely approaching it like it's a challenge is kind of more where these games come from. For anyone who wants your tabletop role playing games to feel more like games, I think that's one of the best ways to describe this is you're kind of bringing the game back into role playing games.
Yeah, and I think Rocky and I too both I guess we're a little older now. But we came from an era of where like because your character was so fragile, that like you didn't have a backstory and that going until like third level.
Yeah,
When
third
you'd like
level.
picked
Right.
up some stuff and the DM had been like, "Oh, this guy might live. I'll drop some story hints in there and like and maybe like, oh yeah, maybe you've got a brother that like brought something one day and you're like, oh, I want to go check up on my brother. And then like you start developing the story when you've got a little bit of cash for the DM to try to sink into something, so you can't spend it on something fun.
Yep, absolutely. Now we talked a little bit about this when we were talking about fond RPG memories, but like Rocky said, you guys met at Gen Con. Was it 2007?
I think so. Yeah.
How did it go from you guys meeting at a convention to let's start putting product out there?
Hmm. So you have to take another step back. We met at True Dungeon at Gen Con. In 2008, True Dungeon was doing a dragon that they claimed was going to kill everybody. And for those of you not familiar with True Dungeon, you go through 7 rooms and you have like a shuffleboard puck that you fight stuff with, and you have to physically figure out puzzles in this immersive room. So Ian and I got together on their forums at the time, and that's how we became friends. Was figuring out how to kill this dragon. Again, we went back to our old school roots and figured out this is the puzzle of killing this dragon. How do we do it? And we literally had 6 weeks worth of conversations before a 12-minute battle with a dragon. Um, after that battle, we became pretty good friends, and I started talking about eventually I want to publish a mega dungeon. And Ian said, "Hey, I kind of want to get into publishing too." So we formed Silver Bulette a couple of years later, and here we are now. What 10 books under our belt between digital and print versions, something like that.
It's getting up there.
Yeah.
Not as much as it should. We got
Uh,
slowed down in our own stuff because we do some work for other people too, and
yep.
um,
Yeah. Right now, I'm laying out Greg Gillespie's newest mega dungeon. We're about to start the 5e layout for that, for example. That'll start probably Friday or Saturday. I'll start working on the second book of that.
Sweet.
We've always sort of got a lot of little projects burning. But yeah, a lot of this started because Rocky has this vision of a mega dungeon. And it was like, oh, I think you could do that. I think we could do that without like losing money and still make something pretty. And
we keep doing other stuff instead.
we'll get there, man.
Yeah, well, I know. I'm
It's my
not
carrot.
currently in a hurry.
Keep-
Right? Keep dangling it.
Is making a mega dungeon the like mirror opposite of playing a mega dungeon? Eventually, we're gonna finish this.
Yes.
Or it drives him mad. It's
Yep.
like I'm filming a documentary about making a mega dungeon. I tell you what, no. No, he's getting there. It's got some pretty sweet pieces, and he's developing it.
There's several good set pieces in it. I haven't played it a lot since the pandemic started. Obviously, can't go to the FLGS, and I had some health issues for a little while, but hoping to get back into that later this year after we finish up. Issue 1 of Fantastic Geographic's pretty much done on my end. Issue 2 is pretty much written and ready to be in layout, and then we have another module that we've been working on for several years that I'm laying out now, and then I'm hoping to get back into getting some of the Mega Dungeon stuff done.
Yeah, that was sort of our frozen project before Rocky took a break for a bit, and then we jumped back in. So, yeah, like I said, I guess that project's on. We're gonna finish that one soon.
I'm not giving you a choice.
You know me, I'm in.
Now, when it comes to the name that you guys picked, obviously, Silver Bulette seems like a layup. Whose idea was it, and was there an argument over whether or not you were going to use it?
I think I'm not even sure who thought of it. It was a joint effort, and once it was heard, it was just there. We were like,
Yep, that was it. It was the name,
and we knew it was good. We had made T-shirts, and at Gen Con, Tim Kask was rolling by across the street, and he's like, "Hey!" Yells at us. He's like, "Where the hell did you get that shirt?" So we had to give Tim a shirt for that immediately, and we're like, "Yeah, this is perfect."
Mm-hmm.
And it's through Tim. He's like, "What does it say?" Once you read it to him, like a test.
Just open up the notebook and cross off "accosted by Tim Kask at convention" off the bucket list.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
I still have not met him because he was not at North Texas when I was there. So hopefully sometime in the not too distant future, I'll get to meet Tim Kask finally.
He's not as bloodthirsty in his games anymore.
He is not.
Which is nice because you get a really a really fun gaming experience with him. I think right now that it shows some of his experiences as a game master and as a writer and editor that he can incorporate so much in and put out something that people have a great time with.
Mm-hmm. I've heard the stories. I've heard people talk about the wheel and how that generates misery.
It's good.
It does. I'm just the last time I played it was with Skeeter Green, and it went nuclear at the end of it.
Oh yeah,
because
yeah, you guys broke the wheel.
Yeah, we broke the wheel for sure. I mean, I survived, but I think I was the only one.
Now, getting into some of the stuff that you guys have with Fantastic Geographic, first of all, I just have to say, you guys have Fantastic Geographic. Wampler has Scientific Barbarian. Is Creatures Digest going to be the next one from your group?
Don't steal our ideas. Are you just advertising to everybody? Trademark, TM that. Yeah, we talked to Jim about it too. We're like, this is what we want to do. What do you think? And he's like, that is cool. You guys 100% should go for it to make sure we weren't encroaching. But we definitely it hit everything that we felt because it's a bunch of pieces that you could take and drop into any of your campaign worlds and be it Even this issue, you get a bunch of different like terrain settings and a bunch of different stuff that you can just immediately use.
Yeah.
No matter what you're running.
Yeah, I think we have 3 adventures in there.
Mhm.
And I know that every issue I want to put in a unique dragon. Like dragons and undead are my 2 favorite creatures, so and I've had several ideas for great dragons, and the one in this issue is a blue dragon that collects statues, and she controls an area of a desert, and in order to travel through with your caravan, you got to deliver a statue, and she doesn't care if it's 1 inch tall or if it's the Colossus of Rhodes, right?
Mhm.
She just wants another statue she doesn't have. And having dragons and powerful NPCs like that, I think, are important in a game where, like, even high level adventure, she's only like a CR 14 and 5th edition stats. Even like an 18th or 20th level party is going to have a difficult time beating her because the way that she has set up her lair, so it's on top of a plateau, and she can see for miles around, and knowing how to develop a dragon like that can be a really fun thing, and having one already done for you in Fantastic Geographic can show a lot of DMs, this can be the power of a dragon.
Mhm. Gotcha. So when it came to kind of putting everything together in Fantastic Geographic, what prompted the, hey, let's make this zine, let's put all this in the book, and then how successful has this been so far, kind of, in the early stages of your campaign at this point?
So I think part of this is that we had written this urban adventure that we really didn't know how to present, because it was like a bunch of little missions, and we're like, how do we do this without it being like we played with a bunch of stuff, until Rocky pitched that he had a dragon that he really wanted to start pushing some of the dragon stuff. So a zine kind of made sense from there. And I think at this point, we're successful. Like we'll break even with our art and our print costs and stuff, and have some copies to sell after. So for us at this point, we're successful. Like we've done this, and like I still got my shirt. Rocky does
Yep.
too. And that's where we go from there. And ideally, we manage to make enough to pay for some amazing art for our next project, because that's kind of how we do it. We grab the what we can from this one and keep pushing it to make a better and better product.
Mhm.
Oh, and we had a special guest author in this one too. James Spahn did an article for us. Um, Congratulations, James, on the baby boy too. He had a baby boy today.
Awesome. Awesome. Definitely. Congratulations.
Yeah, his the creature he wrote is lovely.
It's
I
great.
love it. It really is.
Mhm.
It's an innocuous looking bird that is anything but innocuous. So.
Sweet. Now, Rocky, you've brought up something very interesting here, and that's your love of dragons. I just want to ask you a little bit about that because I've heard a lot of people somewhat recently talk about how dragons are boring. I disagree with that, and I know based on what you said that you disagree with that. So hold forth a little bit on dragons and what is so cool about them or what's so interesting about them to you.
Well, dragons are the title character of Dungeons and Dragons, right? Like
Yeah.
they are that creature. They are the thing that should be the mountaintop, and if you're not portraying them that way, you're doing something wrong. In my mega dungeon, there's, for example, there's an NPC named Acidophilus. He's a green dragon that walks around, polymorphed into a dwarf most of the time. Like he goes out and he's, because he's a druid, he's neutral, right? So
Mhm.
he'll go and help the party. Sometimes he'll hinder the party, but he's an interesting character that the players always like to see show up, and they don't care if he's in dragon form, they don't care if he's in dwarf form. You know, there he has rivalries with other dragons in the mountain, that type of thing. Um, but dragons are powerful, and they They can't be everywhere, but they have to be present. Is a good way of putting it, I think.
And I think that some of these people who are saying that dragons are boring are missing a huge opportunity with dragons.
Yeah.
And they're opening up a stat book and they're saying like, all right, this gold dragon's in this cave, or this dragon's in this. It's like, nope, that dragon should be like a living creature with a
Yeah.
unique name. And you know what? He's going to know some wizard spells. And ooh, you know what? We're going to give him some magic items. And he's not an idiot. So he's going to be like wearing that ring and he's going to have
Yep.
on this stuff.
Mhm.
And he's going to know how to use it and know the area and have allies of his own. And then you've got an adversary.
And you can't just boil them down to combatants.
Yeah.
Dragons have to be powerful personalities, and if you're not using them as powerful personalities, then you need to try to. That anytime you're talking about a dragon, you're talking about world-shifting power, and just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what you guys have said here. Dragons, they almost have to come across as like the super villains, like the mega super villains of fantasy role playing because of the dominance of their personality. Even if you just dig a little bit deeper into the monster manuals that you have there, you can see these creatures all have unique habits, unique environments that they like to live in. They're drawn to different things. I've seen white dragons all over the place in different 5e games, but it wasn't until I started looking into stuff for my own game that I realized, wait, white dragons like to sleep upside down like they're bats. And like they hang like a like an icicle.
Yep.
Which is just it's a small detail, but it's interesting. It gets you it gives you an extra little thing to make something, unique with your dragons.
And every dragon can be unique. It doesn't take much. One of the dragons that will show up in a later issue of Fantastic Geographic is it's a blue dragon that lost his wings and has coated the floor of his lair with copper wire all over the place. So it doesn't matter where you're standing in there, that lightning breath is going to hit you. And things like you've got to think about, this. If you are going to use it as an adversary like that, that dragon has a breath weapon that it wants to be able to use if 10 people come in to assault it. So it has set up its lair so that breath weapon will hit you.
I think that like in a fantasy game, if you're playing in a campaign with any sort of story and any sort of developed landscape where there's villages or towns, like a dragon is a nuclear weapon in a fantasy campaign. Like, sure, your 10th level fighters and wizards and clerics can handle it, but what can a bunch of 0 level farmers do when that thing swoops overhead? Absolutely nothing. They're all going to be murdered. And I think that's almost more terrifying for the players. What's the best way to get back at your players? Burn down their favorite tavern?
Yep.
Now you guys have me thinking about, like, what if you went into a dragon's lair and they shot their breath weapon at you and it missed? Like, it wildly went out of the way because they weren't aiming for the party. They were aiming for a pile of gold right next to the party that's now at molten gold.
Dripping on the party, yeah.
Yeah, and for anyone who ends up in my campaign, if that exact situation
hot dripping
happens,
gold hallway is have him do it in a hallway when he sees him coming or she sees him coming, and have the gold above, and it just breathes above, like, it didn't even hit us, and then, I love that.
Yep, it'll be a dex save to get out of the way of that.
There's no dex saving out of that. Raining gold, just burn.
Or it'll be a strength or constitution save to get the molten gold off of you. Otherwise, it'll solidify and you're a statue.
Good way to lose a hand, though, right? Solid gold.
In fact, that would be like a cool bit in that, like, for that layer, you just see like molten gold figures just like frozen in place.
Like the dragon encases them in gold after she kills them. That's lovely. That's a terrifying dragon. Yeah, so you've already made a dragon that's gonna, like, it's gonna get someone going in there, so it's gonna scare everybody.
Yep.
Man, and dragons are a huge part of Night Haven that I'm working on, so I like these ideas. I'm gonna file that away for later.
Yeah, just make sure if party runs across a dragon, dragon needs a name.
Oh yeah.
They're powerful enough where they should always have a name.
Mhm.
If you're concerned about your dragon too, always just like give it some spell levels. Make
Yep.
it a wizard, make it a cleric. Give it because it's been around. There's no reason it couldn't have picked up some spells.
Yep, it's seen some things.
Absolutely. So, we talked a little bit about what you guys are doing kind of with this first issue of Fantastic Geographic, and I know, Rocky, you mentioned you want a unique dragon in every issue. What other things are you guys looking to do in subsequent volumes of Fantastic Geographic without giving away too much, obviously?
So I convinced Rocky to do a sci-fi fantasy crossover. So to splash some fantasy, a la Expedition to the Buried Peaks into your fantasy. So we're gonna add. So like I said, it'll be a Mutant World Classic, but it will also have stats and setup, so you could run that thing with your Dungeon Crawl Classics group.
And we were talking about that adventure that was a bunch of vignettes. We have, I think, 8 of those that we've written so far. So one of those is going to appear in every issue. Several of our modules in the past have been based in or around our main city of Redstone. So a lot of those urban adventures are fleshing out that city in one fashion or another. I have,
and that
and
series of adventures is really like we both dislike the idea of a single like thieves guild running a city. Like it would be a bunch of different gangs. So that's essentially what these adventures are. Is you're dealing with like a low end gang war, and how do you deal with it? And you're welcome to move up in the ranks or thwart them, so it's a fun set of adventures.
Yeah, I've been in very similar headspace. The game that I'm working on is urban as well. So the natural question that comes up there is, what have you guys noticed is different about designing adventures and encounters in an urban environment versus in like your standard kind of open field or enclosed dungeon space that you're typically finding in fantasy adventures?
I think a cityscape is a lot more dynamic, right? Like, depending on the time of day, you might have 100 innocent bystanders, or there might be 2 drunk people in the middle of the night, right? Like, depending on when the shenanigans are going down with the group. So, it's not like a dungeon where you walk into a door and you go through the door. There's 2 orcs standing there ready to fight you. It's are the rival gang going to call for reinforcements? Are they able to call for reinforcements? Where are the city guards at right now? There are several things that can change at a moment's notice when you're talking about a city adventure that aren't going to be so prevalent in a dungeon or wilderness adventure.
Yeah, and I think a city is also much more deadly for your classic murder hobo characters, if it's run right, right? Because you can't just go murdering your way through a city. There's like
Right.
otherwise it wouldn't be a city. There's must be some law enforcement to deal with meatheads like that. So, and we flushed some of that out in Fantastic Geographic. Like, how would you do this? How would you handle like city? How would you be able to summon guards? And what should that look like? To intimidate the players enough to stop murdering poor old ladies trying to cross the
Yep.
street.
Yep. Do guards recognize you? Are you on a wanted poster yet? Those are things that we've touched base on in the first issue that will probably get expanded on in later issues too.
I think even just the inconvenience of your players not being able to get anywhere in a city without getting hassled by guards can change behavior and like have them play more creatively and a little bit more savvily in the city.
When I was playtesting the game, I had a wizard that ended up having to like walk around the city disguised because every time the group did something, he was not able to get away and he kept getting arrested. So, so all the guards recognized him on sight every time he stuck his head out onto the street. So he eventually had to start carrying like 5 different disguises with him so that he could quickly change and not be chased down by the sentinels.
Mhm. Just kind of turn into the Inspector Clouseau of your group.
Yep. Yep.
Now, one thing that I've been kind of playing around with in my setting, depending on the time of day, every time an encounter starts on the streets of the city, someone has to roll a dice, and depending on the time of day, it depends on what type of dice you're rolling. So, like in the middle of the night, it would be like a D10. In the middle of the afternoon, when the streets are bustling, it would be a D4. But at the end of that, that gives you a number of rounds before someone is coming to break things up.
Well, that's not bad.
That's a really good idea.
I think also like I run cities in my games just like I would in Overland, like hex crawl.
Mhm.
Like moving in the city for a certain period of time gives you a roll on a random encounter check. Like you're gonna see some messed up city stuff, or you're gonna see, it's like every time I've been to New York City, I always make sure that I get to at least witness one drug deal. I'm like, oh, there it is. All right, honey, I'm ready to go. But I always want to see that, right? So that's the sort of thing that you want to incorporate into your city thing is like, is there a dude hawking watches out of his coat? Is there you want to try to flesh it out like that? And I think quite like a real simple way to make it seem more fleshed out is some random encounters in the city.
Yeah, I mean, it's a city it's the concrete jungle cliche. It's a thriving ecosystem where there's all kinds of things that are constantly happening, and I think one of the ways to make a city really stand out as a location is to have those kind of crazy, weird things that people can encounter on the side of the road, just as they move across the hexes. And again, it seems like we've kind of been living in the same headspace in that regard, because I've been thinking about a lot of that stuff too, as far as just making something happen every so often in the city.
And I think people an encounter isn't always just a fight. It's not always a swamp gator busting out of the water on you. It's something difficult or deadly or potentially dangerous, right? That could be like a runaway cart, or that could be and things like that lead to the creation of NPCs that will make your game unforgettable for sure, and encounters that will.
Now, another thing that I've been trying to do is make the open use of magic a little bit more difficult for players who are using magic in the city. And the way I do it is there's a magic police that operates in the city of Nighthaven, in my game. And if you are going around, just like chucking fireballs through windows and stuff like that, they're coming after you. Have you guys played around with any of that? Is that like incorporated in what you've built up in your city?
Not really. Largely, I think in a city the size of Redstone, right? It's based loosely off of Rome, so you have these high level clerics, you have these high level wizards that live in this city, and if you go start, blasting fireballs in the street, guess who's going to show up? Because
Yeah,
they
vulgar.
don't want to pay extra taxes because
Yep.
you were being a whatever.
Vulgar
So-
displays of magic are dealt with zero prejudice, and
Yeah,
any
right, and
city
you're
that can
gonna
stand
die.
on its own.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
for sure, that makes it more fun though if you like outlaw or renegade magic, like Dark Sun style, classic second edition setting with magic rarity and scarcity. That can be fun. I have like in my home game, the last classic fantasy game I was running, I had a gnome city that they just like would create fines and
I hated that city. I hated that city.
fines and licenses for everything, like everything. Like it was lovely. It was just, and the city was a madhouse. There were some. You want to see some fun random encounters in the city? That place had them. Where you're like, what the heck is going on? I had a player. They took a bunch of downtime there, and she took a whole day just to roll random encounters and watch them. She's like, I just want to hear what you're going to describe. It's like, all right, roll a d12. Let's see what pops up on this street. But she had a great time. She witnessed a duel. She witnessed all sorts of fun stuff.
Now, this gnome city was like a city that was mostly populated with gnomes. Am I correct in assuming this?
Yeah.
Yep.
There were some dwarf emigres, but they sort of treated them like second-class citizens. That game that I ran too, there was actually a whole plot about a demon messing with the dwarves and taking them over, but they just kind of breezed by that and let that happen.
So, were there many situations where the players had to stoop as they walked into buildings and stuff like that, or?
Oh, for sure. And they did, and it was super hard to navigate too. I made it incredibly. It was a 5th edition game, so you know how stat checks get with that one if you've ever played it. But I made it incredibly difficult to navigate. So oftentimes they would try to go somewhere, and they would stop at a tavern, and be drunk, lost in the city. They got fined for putting a Darren's Instant Fortress just in the middle of a clearing. This looks good. We can't find our hotel. We're going here. So, anybody who's driven in the city can feel that frustration,
Yep.
Yeah, that's an interesting scenario because you have a very heavy bureaucracy, and on top of that, just by nature of being taller than everyone else, the players stand out. So,
yeah, that city really is awfully boiled down to every awful thing I didn't like about bureaucracy in cities just boiled down into a nice syrup of bitterness. People either love it or hate it too. It's strange. I think it tells you something about what your group for sure.
Absolutely. Now, the last thing I want to talk about as far as the just designing specifically for cities, I've read and seen a lot of information out there about certain types of armor were forbidden in the cities because it wasn't a time of war. So someone walking around in full plate armor with a halberd, they're gonna have a hard time just navigating the city because people are gonna assume they're being invaded at that point. Have you guys played around with any of that, or what's kind of your take on that side of things?
When I'm running Redstone, it's generally frowned upon to be wearing your full combat gear out on the streets. It's not it's not illegal, but you're probably going to have 4 or 5 guards following you from shop to shop, just watching what you're doing and waiting for you to make the smallest mistake. Because, well, let's face it, plate armor is 300 to 500 gold pieces. That's the price of a house.
Yep.
If they can confiscate that and sell it, they're going to be quite happy and have a huge bonus at the end of the day. And they're not corrupt, but they're looking for any excuse at that point. Most of them aren't corrupt. There are a few that are corrupt too that will be just like, hey, we're arresting you now because you're wearing plate armor and have a glowing sword. So yeah, I will let them pass, but they know that they are on their best behavior or their toys get taken away.
It gets you noticed, right? If you're driving up to the party in a tank is a lot different than rolling up in a mid-sized sedan. And I think that you should reflect that in your running style and play style, and have them draw the attention of guards and people they might not want attention from if they're fully kitted out for the joust while just going, we're gonna go talk to that fence, and he's like, clink clink, you look way too obvious, buddy.
And oh, sorry, go ahead, Rocky.
Well, I was just gonna say an anecdote about our buddy Jake that we've talked about. He was the one that walked around in armor all the time, but he loved throwing gold at the guards that were following him and stuff. That was one thing that he did a lot to keep them off of his back. So they would turn the corner for a minute while he would go and do something a little less savory. He would often bribe the guards walking around looking wealthy like that, he would bribe him a lot.
That's pretty great. Like full on. It's like an
Yeah, full on,
Assassin's
just
Creed
like
where you can throw bags of money
yep,
at people.
yep, yep, straight up.
Yeah, but we all know what would happen. Some guy's running by and throws you $500.
Yeah, you want 500 more?
Yep.
Yeah, of course.
You following around the guy who's throwing bags of money at me.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are a lot of circumstances in role-playing games where I feel like people don't take into account the differences of the environment that their game is set in. And so that's something that I've been kind of, puzzling through specifically with urban environments, but also generally speaking, what does a campaign that's entirely set in the Underdark, how is that different from a campaign where you're, above ground? You'll be doing the same kind of things. You're, exploring, uh, trying to find specific things, but the deprivation of light and stuff that you would have on the surface is going to change circumstances. So it's interesting to think about, and I feel like if you put the time and thought and effort into that, you make a better experience for your players than if you just say, all right, we're going to play D&D, but this time it's in a cave, nothing's changed, we're just, everyone's in a cave.
I think you need NPCs that become memorable for the players to make any long-term campaign effective.
And I like to talk about the 3 pillars of role playing: combat, exploration, and role playing. And you can turn those dials to make campaigns different, right? Yeah, and something like the lack of a light source can be both exploration and role playing, depending on how it's portrayed. And that's largely on the DM to get the players into the correct mindset. But a good DM should be able to either invoke that feeling of dread and claustrophobia and the darkness closing in, or the hope of light is just around the next corner, right?
Yep.
And whichever way you want to play it, it's up to the DM.
Yeah, absolutely. So once you guys have this campaign wrapped up and everything's done with Fantastic Geographic, what else are you guys working on, and what's next for Silver Bulette?
So we have, like we said, that issue 2 planned. Likely
It's already in layout.
Yeah, and that'll likely be kickstarting by North Texas the way it's looking. We're really just at this point waiting for art to finish up, and then we're ready to print for this.
Yep. So at this point, the plan is finish this Kickstarter up, have it fulfilled. Ian and I will meet in June at North Texas to sign the autographed copies and that kind of thing, and then be completely done with this Kickstarter and on to the next one, Fantastic Geographic 2 in June. And then September, October, that one should be finished up and moving on to, I'm hoping to do a module at that point, depending on where I'm at in the layout for that.
And that is an estimated around 100 pages, it's looking like, I'd say.
Yep, right now. And that's...
With dozens of maps, lots of art, lots
and that's Dirge of the Frost Jarl. We've been talking about it for years. Creeping Cold was our first Kickstarter. This is the successor to it. When I got sick a couple years ago, it put us way off track. But I was able to get back into the InDesign files of this and get back to work on it. And we've already got several assets for that, and some of the artwork and most of the maps. So that'll be a pretty easy one to put together as we get into the summer, as long as my 3 kids let me get some work done.
Yep. And then as far as conventions coming up, obviously, we've mentioned North Texas. I think at the top of the show we mentioned that Rocky is going to be at GaryCon. What else do you got? What other conventions are you planning on hitting up just in 2022?
I'm doing the first Chaosium Con in April. We will be doing Gamehole Con for sure this year. And then it's about our general circuit at this point is TotalCon, North Texas, Gamehole, sort of as regional
Yep.
as we can get without hitting up the West Coast, because we haven't found one over there yet that we'd like to go to, I guess.
And I typically hit GaryCon. I'll be hitting GaryCon this year. Grand Con in Grand Rapids, Michigan, I might end up going to in September. We'll see. But the 4 that I typically go to are North Texas, Gamehole, Gary, and TotalCon.
And Gary Con is usually on my list, but I just couldn't do it because of family obligations this year.
Gotcha. And what are you kind of planning on running for these conventions, or what should people be on the lookout for if they want to play in a game with Ian McGarty or Rocky Gardner?
So I've already got some games in for North Texas. There is a Morkborg adventure in there that is maybe a social adventure. No, it's social for a little bit, but then it's straight up Morkborg mayhem. So, and I think, what else did I put? I put in a Mutant Crawl Classics adventure. I'm trying to remember which one it was. I put in something for Mutant Crawl Classics, probably.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
But you'll find me running anything from 5th edition Swords and Wizardry to Mutant Crawl Classics, DCC, OSE, Morkborg.
I spend most of my days at the Independent Publishers Union booth when I'm at conventions, so I don't run a lot. I'm working on putting together a greatest hits of Mega Dungeon rooms, so taking some from like a couple of more famous rooms from Barrow Maze, a couple from Undermountain, and just kind of hodgepodging them together and being like, here you go. Have fun figuring out, this famous puzzle or this, this scenario or whatever. And that's on my list to get to running, and I'm hoping at Gamehole I'll have it ready to go.
Sweet. And as we're kind of reaching the end of our time here, kind of a last minute thing that happened, just this afternoon. You guys got some art for Fantastic Geographic in. So James, if you want to go ahead and display that for everyone, there's some really cool pieces here from Del Tiegler that we have to show off.
And these are actually from that city adventure we mentioned. So these are some of the NPCs in there that you'll encounter. And he did a couple different backgrounds. His artwork is just stellar.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, it gives me goosebumps seeing it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, a lot of that stuff is gorgeous.
We really have an all-star lineup of artists in Fantastic Geographic. Who else in there, Ian?
So Jonathan Bingham drew the cover, and his wife Daisy Bingham is doing the color for it, and she's working on that now. And she's exceptional as well. She's done a lot of coloring too for for Jeff Talanian on some of his stuff. We have Keelan Halverson, Wonky Art, doing some of our creepiest monsters because we like some of his monster stuff is.
Oh yeah.
It's terrifying. Like it's what you want a monster picture to be. We've got. I'm trying to think of. We have so much art coming in. We have this gentleman, Dave Simpson from Texas area, who Mike Battalata hooked us up with, who's just been producing some unbelievable stuff. But I mean, at this point, I think we started and we're like, we want to get 12 unique pieces, and we're almost twice that at this point.
Yeah, we got a couple from Lloyd Metcalf.
Yeah, Lloyd did some. I think we've got some. Do we have an Ed Bickford in there? Or is that going in the second?
Yes, I think we have one Ed Bickford in there. I think Bill is in there.
And he'll have some in the second issue as well. So we have a lot of really exceptional artists, and we've got more exceptional artists that we're just like chomping at the bit to use. I think that's the one wish of every RPG creator is just endless art budget. Is just
absolutely.
Mhm.
30 artists chained up in your basement. Like, I need more of this. Hurry!
Yep.
And we have artists that knock it out of the park. Like, they just get us. They hear what, click with our descriptions and what we're looking for, and really bring it to life.
Awesome. And then map-wise, Ian, you actually did the majority of the maps for this. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I did all, but in this one, the city adventure has like a neighborhood map with some locations, and that is actually a piece of a map Alyssa Faden did for us.
Mhm.
And then we have another. I'm
Yeah, we
blanking on
have the. I don't
who did the other
remember
map.
her name either. The overview land map of the area around Redstone, and I don't remember the artist's name.
I'm just
But
blanking on who
yeah,
it is.
well, she did it for us before I got sick, so like it was a long time ago. But she
Um,
did. It's a phenomenal piece, and she's definitely credited it in the
yeah,
book.
and that's a great map too. That's a
Yeah,
nice
it
one to
really
run on.
is.
But all the sort of like location maps, dungeon map stuff are me at this point. So, but I've gotten good at mapping apparently. So I just
Yes.
had Alex Kamer's book on Thay and Ed Greenwood's book on Thay. A lot of those maps in there are mine.
Mhm.
Not Mike Lay's Overland map, which is a really awesome map too. I love it. Like you can feel the height in that map.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, it's kind of some dream mapping gigs, and all started because we needed to figure out how to get maps in our modules that we could afford when we were first doing it on a.
Yeah, our earliest maps are literally Dwarven Forge tiles taken pictures of and then photoshopped in our earliest modules. That's how we did our maps, and Ian said that's not good enough and started learning how to map, and here he is a few years later doing it for Ed Greenwood.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yep. And even though he's frozen right now, I don't know if he can hear us or not. But
There he
Ian's.
goes.
Yep, he's back
Sorry,
now.
it just got windy and stormy. We were having thunderstorms
Mhm.
apparently, and some snow.
Oh yeah, that we just got through some of those on our end here. So yeah. Now, but as I was saying, Ian's maps are actually super good. So, you know, they are legitimately amazing maps. Having seen a few of them in the game that I was able to play in with Ian, they really are like good quality maps.
I appreciate that. I do
Cool.
love printing them out for that's my move too. If you ever draw your own maps, even if you're just doing a pen and a paper, if you scan it, you can. It's technically a draft blueprint because it's a blueprint of your dungeon or your building, and you can print it out at Staples for less than $10 in huge format.
Absolutely. So we are kind of at the end of our time here. So what I want to do is first of all, let's get the Kickstarter link back up in the chat here so that people here can see it. Once again, this is Fantastic Geographic issue number 1. It's got 22 days to go as we are doing this right now. So anyone watching this on YouTube, there is still time for you to get in on this Kickstarter. Um, but that aside, where else can people find stuff that you guys are working on, or information about your projects, or where you'll be convention wise? Where can people find Silver Bulette?
We have a Facebook page, Silver Bulette. That's where the majority of our stuff is. We do a lot of digital sales through Drive-Through RPG, and that's pretty much our web presence at the moment. One of the things that is on our checklist to do this year is to get either a website or a better online presence of some sort. We haven't exactly figured out what that means yet, but it's on the list.
Awesome. Cool. And then just one other place, again, because we mentioned them a few times. I will direct people towards the Independent Publishers Union Instagram page, which is just at Independent Publishers Union. They've got all kinds of stuff from Skeeter Green, Planet X, Northwind Adventures, and of course Silver Boulets.
Yep. Yeah, and Jim Wampler's there too. Mud Puppy Games, and working with the IPU has been great. We're just a bunch of buddies that we share experiences and ideas, and it's made it a lot better for all of us. Nobody has to sit at a booth for 8 hours a day when we've joined our resources like this. And Levi is he's a monster when it comes to those internets. He's all over the place with the hashtags and those pictures, and he's everywhere. And I appreciate all the support that he gives us. All of them give us. We all try and help each other out, but they've been great through this whole Kickstarter. All four of the other guys.
Actually, I think it's the Phylactery 4. I've got a piece in that you can check out too if you check out Levi's Kickstarter for Phylactery 4, the Omnibus, and that one's based on Arduin stuff. So
nice. Well, guys, that is going to do it for tonight's episode of Rollin' Bones. Ian and Rocky, I appreciate you guys coming on. This has been a great conversation. We've had, we've talked about lots of cool things here tonight. And we got to talk about dragons, which, again, so many people just ignore dragons, which is weird because the hobby is Dungeons and Dragons, but, that's beside the point. Yeah, exactly. It's the weirdest thing in the world, but we got to talk dragons tonight, which I am always happy to do.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation tonight. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, this was a blast.
Sweet. And next time you guys have something to talk about, definitely hit me up and we'll try to make this happen again.
Sounds good.
Sweet. So, guys, that is it for this week's episode of Rollin' Bones. To let everyone know what's coming up next week, my producer, James, will actually be visible the whole time next week, and he'll be joined by Amanda from the Tales of Valor show that they are doing right now. So we're going to be talking all about the current adventure in Tales of Valor and what's going on there. It's another urban adventure, so I'm excited to talk about all that stuff. This time set in Waterdeep, so that's going to be super cool to discuss. But we will be doing that next week with James and Amanda on the show. And it's for every update on what's going on with Rollin' Bones, and if you want to see the miniatures that I'm painting, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Howard_Ryan Gregg. One more time, I will direct all of you to the Discord community for Valor Studios and valorstudios.com. Please subscribe on here if you love what you're seeing and you want to support what we've got going on here. That is greatly appreciated. And definitely give us a subscribe on YouTube and share this with all your gaming friends who didn't get the chance to join us live here. So until next time, whether you rolled a 1 or a 20, I am so glad that you rolled your bones with me, Ryan Howard, and with us at Valor Studios, and I will see you guys next time.